welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am Jessica, your host, and I am here with Kristine Delano, who wrote The Lies We Trade, which this is your debut novel.
Yes, it is.
You must be like an avid either reader or like writer in your private life because I can't believe that this is a debut novel.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
It was
That's great
really
to
well
hear.
done. It was really twisty. I know that you brought some of your own Wall Street background into it, which we can chat about. But, one of the things that I was a little concerned about because I have no idea. I'm like I'm as a lot of people are very aware of Wall Street and trading, but there's intricacies that a lot of us are not aware of. And there was no learning curve there. You were
Oh,
very good at
good.
just making it part of Meredith's job, and then the story was really what surrounded everybody. So, please give us a little background on yourself and the aforementioned background on Wall Street I alluded to, and then tell us a little bit about this story and where the idea for it came from.
Yes. So I spent just over 20 years in high finance, so working for a number of different Wall Street firms. I retired from the full-time job in 2020, like right before the pandemic hit. Couldn't have been better timing. And I had lots of ideas about what I was going to do next. And I was going to sit on boards, I was going to do some strategic consulting, and I do some of that. But it was the stories of all the mentoring relationships I'd had, just working in this pressure cooker environment where reputations are traded and, people rising and falling. And I had just had so many ideas. I've been a voracious reader, but never thought I would be a writer. And I kind of inadvertently wrote my first novel and then was like, oh, I should figure out how to do this and how. So I took a ton of classes, I hooked up with writing groups and all of that. So this is actually my fourth novel, but the first one to be published. All the rest of them are like tucked away and, never to see the light of day. So I'm super excited that I was able to get an agent and a publisher interested, especially in sort of a Wall Street story. And it hinges on a woman, Meredith, who's having kind of the best week of her life, and the worst thing happens where she's forced to sign a restraining order against her second in command. And that was kind of the impetus for the model, like, or for the book, like what could have happened to both her and her second in command, Betsy, to make all of this come together. And then the fallout for her troubled marriage and her teenage daughter and all of it. And so it's just a twisty novel that, is in a place that I love, but also am challenged by, which is Wall Street.
Yeah, no, it works out. And again, like I said, I think your familiarity was good, but you didn't lean so much into the mechanics that it would really, like any less than any other novel you read where the protagonist has a job that you may or may not know anything about. It really was not intimidating at all.
Good.
And the family drama, the domestic suspense, the secrets, the histories of everybody, that was really what was in the forefront. And then, Meredith's relationships with her family, her teenage daughter, her husband, her second in command, her husband's past, like that was really all the things that we had to sort of piece together to figure out what exactly was going on. Um, so I'm kind of surprised that you never thought you would write before. That's like it always knocks me off my feet when like somebody says that because for the most part, like when we're talking to authors, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been a writer since forever." And then you get that one that wrote a really good book and is just like, "Yeah, no, I don't know. This just fell out of me." And it
I
was a good
don't think it
idea.
I don't think it fell out of me. I think I love story.
Oh,
I
the
never
meaning
pictured
meaning
myself.
more the authorship in general is what fell
Yes.
out of you, not so much this
Yes.
particular book, but just like, oh, I'm going to do this. Like that's
Right.
pretty cool.
Yes, yes. And I always just put authors in such high esteem. I loved story. When I was in my career, I would have to read, hundreds of pages of dry reports and all of that. And I would reward myself with like two chapters in my thriller if I could get through this before I could get back to it. So stories were always my reward. So the idea that I could be the one to create something that would draw people in and get them excited about the world that I lived in and the things that I cared about. I care about women that are in sort of the work-life balance and have all the pressures coming to them, and I want to give it a little bit of hope and a lot of bit of thrilling.
Yeah, and you do talk about, there is a line in there where Meredith is, I think she's thinking about her husband and she's like, it's really hard to be, this woman in this high pressure career, but it's also a career that you love,
Right.
which I thought was important because it's not even so much that she did it because she felt like she had to work,
Mm,
which is the way of the world. But Meredith's fortunate enough, no matter how stressful her job was, to like what she did and like even like one step further to love it. And then everything was sort of coming apart at the seams, derailing all of the things that were important to her and that she loved. And she wasn't exactly sure where it was all coming from. And it was just, it made for a good thriller because you knew that this was a life that she worked really hard for.
right. Right. And I think there's times in my career where I always loved what I did, but there was times of real frustration. There's reputations on the stake. There's people in power imbalances that were just stressful. And then I would watch a movie and it would be like, oh, the woman with the city job has to leave it to go back to the harvest festival to like, feel better about herself. And I'm like, well, what about those of us who have to stay in it? Like, can we find some hope there? And what about those marriages where no one's screaming at each other? We've just sort of quiet quit. And, I've mentored a lot of women kind of going through that piece. So I really wanted a book that I felt represented a slice of life that maybe doesn't get as much light.
For sure. And just that whole idea that you don't have to just have either the high pressure job or the harvest festival. There's like a balance. You can
Right.
sort of work it out. So you can
Yes.
have you can it's not easy, but you don't have to always give one up for the other, which
Right.
it's really up to what you want. And I liked that there was that whole aspect to it. I really liked Meredith's relationships in general.
Mm.
And there is a side story involving her teenage daughter, which was very well done. Again, I don't want to talk too much about that and how it plays into everything, but it's just a real well done look at some of the stresses you have as a mother in this particular age.
Right. And I thought it was interesting too, as I kind of got to know the teenage daughter in the book as I was writing it, was just this idea that she always had this view of her parents with like, you're focused on the wrong thing, right? You're asking me about the thing that doesn't matter. And I'm not ready to talk about the thing that does. And so how do we communicate if we're sort of stuck in this place? And I wanted to show the frustration of that. I think that teenagehood is kind of this cool part of life where, they're trying to figure out their ways. Sometimes they're communicative and sometimes they're not. And so writing a story where you've got a kid kind of on the edge with having made bad decisions, but also wanting to be a good person, is a really fun place to write from.
Definitely. And I think it's important to understand that communication is key when it comes to that age group because you have to sort of parlay to some of their terms because they're people and they're growing into adulthood, and if you don't, they're not necessarily going to be able to handle things or trust you,
Right.
which is what you really want at that point. Like you want your kid to trust you, but you also want to be like, hey, I'm giving you some tools, so if I'm not able to be there immediately, you can navigate and also understand that, yeah, they're gonna make some, we're all gonna make some bad choices.
Right. And sometimes you want to tell your kids to be honest and tell you the truth, but you're not willing to do that yourself. And they see what's going on in the marriage. They see so many things that you don't think that they're paying attention to. So I kind of want to show a little bit of that as well, that, you don't get this opportunity to sort of be one way in your marriage and then expect something different in your parenting. They see it all.
Yeah, so it was a really good story. Like I said, it hits a lot of notes with domestic thriller, suspense in general, family drama. It's really, really good, and I do hope that you have other stories in you going forward.
I did sign a two-book deal, so I'm in edits on the second book, which is an estranged sisters book.
Ooh.
One's Wall Street, one's a journalist, and they're really pitted against each other. So I'm having a ton of fun with those sisters because they are voicey and interesting and flawed. So I'm excited that I got to move right from one to the other, not knowing how this book would be received. I just sort of plowed right ahead. So it's been really exciting to know that people are up for some Wall Street suspense books. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character that kind of surprised you in this book?
I really enjoyed Hardwin. He was the chief legal officer of the company. We kind of start a bit of the book with him. He is trying to find his relevancy in the world. And I feel like there's just a population of people now that are trying to do that. They're trying to find their relevancy as the sort of world moves beyond them. And so he's been so vital. And so I kind of had a shark. I was thinking about a shark every time I kind of wrote him, the way that they move and the way that they're sort of scoping things. And then, they're sort of silent and then all of a sudden, will kind of have a killer instinct. So he was a lot more fun than I thought. I thought he was more of just a foil in the book, but he had just moments of fun for me to be able to write.
Excellent. What are some of your favorite reads in general?
Ah, oh my goodness. So I read very widely. I think that, I read everything from sort of historical fiction. A Frozen River is, sort of one of my favorites. My daughter is also a voracious reader. So we are constantly, sending books back and forth to each other. I love Lisa Scottoline, Carter Wilson, who has kind of a darker, really cool thriller out right now. Tell Me
Yeah,
What You Did.
he's good in general, and like
Yes.
one thing about him is he always does something a little different.
Yes.
Like
Yes. He has those
I'm
QR
always
codes. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
surprised with what he comes up with. It's not like sometimes I forget that I'm reading the same author, which is really impressive.
Right. We had a really brief conversation just as I was getting started. It just turned in my book to my publisher. We got introduced. We had a really brief conversation, and he asked me, "Do you want me to read to endorse?" And I was like, "Is that a trick question?" Like, I'm not like, how do I answer that? I'm like, "Yes, I would love it." And he did. And he wrote me an incredible endorsement. He's been such a great supporter and encourager through the process. So, and I was a big fan of him prior to that, so that was a real excitement. Samantha Bailey is kind of the same one. She had a debut that I loved, and then every book since. And she also endorsed, which was just like I had put these people on pedestals, so the idea that they were willing to sort of read my entire book and then give me such amazing feedback was just incredibly gratifying.
For sure. No, definitely. And we've had Carter on the show, I think, twice,
Oh,
and
that's
he's
great.
delightful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We can't wait to hear more from you. The Lies We Trade is, when will it be available?
January 20th.
So check it out from your local library, your favorite bookstore, wherever. And we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.